When a high school has 60% or fewer students graduating on time, it's called a dropout factory. From 2002 to 2008, Nevada went from having 8 schools in that category to 34. It's one of the 5 states in the union with the lowest graduation rates. Nevada educators are now taking a more aggressive approach to reducing the number of high school dropouts. In this program, I'll be talking with Las Vegas teachers to get their perspectives on why students are dropping out, what teachers are doing to help students, and what they think administrators should be doing to raise high school graduation rates. Welcome to American Graduate, Teacher Town Hall, Las Vegas.
You can't put a value on a teacher because they have so much to offer.
Teachers are important because they provide the knowledge for the future of the students and often act as a role model for their students.
American Graduate Teacher Town Halls are funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and are part of American Graduate Let's Make It Happen, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hello, I'm Ray Suarez of the PBS NewsHour. I'll be your host for the next hour's Teacher Town Hall. Let me begin by introducing our panel. Henry Nanny teaches adult education at the Clark County School District. Krista Fiaklevich teaches at Green Valley High School. Gary Martin teaches at Chaparral High School, and Kelly Maureen teaches at Bridger Middle School. Superintendent Dwight Jones was unable to make it to the town hall, so he sent us this recorded message.
Hello, I'm Superintendent Dwight Jones. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend the American Graduate Teacher Town Hall. Teachers play an important role in a child's life, and you affect the lives of many students on a daily basis, even when they are not within the school walls. I would like to thank you for all your hard work and dedication. Have a great discussion.
Before we begin our discussion, teachers completed a poll just a few moments ago, and we had a very simple question. Do you believe you know the reason or reasons for students dropping out? And 76% said yes, 5% no, and 19% not sure. Let's get a quick read from the panel on some of the reasons. Your peers think they have a pretty good fix on why it is that students are leaving school before they graduate. Gary, you're at a turnaround school, one with a serious dropout problem. Why are kids leaving school with no credential?
I would say that it's almost like learned hopelessness. There's been very few people in a lot of my students' immediate family who've ever finished high school. Money's needed to pay the rent, to feed the baby, to feed their own baby. Poverty is a huge problem in the schools that I've been in. So their warm bodies are needed for other things that are more important in education, like life.
Krista, you're also teaching high school. What do you see?
I am. I definitely see a sense of a disenfranchised student, one who doesn't see a value in that which we do in the classroom. Sometimes there's a lack of engagement if you don't have maybe a teacher who is able to convey to them the importance of what's going on and how it's going to affect them. When we talk about ready to exit, if we can't convey to the students that which we're doing in the classroom is going to directly impact what's going to happen after, then they tend not to have the buy-in that's needed.
Hank, you're giving people a second chance, but
yes, sir.
You must hear some of the stories for why they left in the first place.
Absolutely. One of the biggest ones for us is that I hear every day is I have to be a parent. I have to go to work. I have to take care of my mother. I'm uninspired. Transiency is a big problem, moving state to state, not only state to state, district to district, school to school. I'm so far behind, I cannot catch up. It's useless, it's hopeless for me. I feel left out.
Now, in middle school, can you already see kids who are falling behind in a way that will set them up for failure in high school?
I think it can start as early as middle school, and it's interesting because I talk about graduation rates with my students a lot in college, and this week I talked to them about what are your top 2 reasons that you think kids drop out of high school. So I wanted them to write down what they thought and solutions that they had, and it was a wide range of things, but some of the top answers that I got were bullying, teen pregnancy, drugs and gangs, and then that responsibility at home, feeling like they needed to stay home to take care of younger brothers and sisters, working to support their family, and other family issues.
Were you a little surprised by those answers?
I
Were
wasn't.
those things that you see evidence of in the place where you were?
I think that I do see evidence of most of those. I feel like our school is, I think we handle bullying pretty well, so I was kind of surprised at the amount of responses that had bullying as a reason for dropping out. But teen pregnancy, I have had students in middle school who have become pregnant that I know of. I hear stories about kids getting involved in drugs in middle school, and responsibilities at home, I see that too. Having to pay the bills for their parents, like being in charge of their credit card bills and stuff like that. So I knew their responses were very personal, and I appreciated their honest feedback, but I do see most of those things happening at the middle school level.
When 76% of a crowd says anything, you have to take that seriously. That's a pretty heavy majority. You seem to think you know why kids are leaving school. Let's get some suggestions from the floor. Anyone on what do you see that's pushing kids out the door or giving them the feeling that they have no shot at finishing, might as well cut their losses and leave now? Let's get some mics here and tell us where you're from and who you are.
Hi, I'm Michael Vasquez. I'm a teacher at Garside Junior High. And one of the things that I see even at the middle school level is sometimes you'll see kids and they have almost kind of checked out, where they don't really see the value of what they're doing, and you try and talk to them and explain to them, you know, this is going to affect you later, and they don't really seem to understand that factor. And it's really discouraging, especially at a middle school level, but you do see it sometimes.
Checked out in the 8th grade?
Yeah, you do see some kids where, you know, they're failing the majority of their classes, and you talk to them about it, and you say, you know, what effect do you think this is going to have, or what result is this going to have on you later? And they just won't answer or explain what they think is going to be the result of their actions. And when you try to explain, you know, as a result of this, you're not going to be able to go to high school sometimes, or you're not going to be able to go to high school on time with your other peers. Sometimes they just won't answer you and explain what's going through their heads and why they do that.
Well, if I was a teacher and I was talking to a middle schooler who was already convinced they weren't going to graduate high school, I would go home thinking I had had a pretty bad day. That must be a tough thing to hear.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen.
Yes.
My name is Jeff Buckbaum, and I'm at Sunrise Mountain High School. And before that, I had the privilege of working at Monaco Middle School, which is a feeder school to Sunrise Mountain. And I would get 6th graders that would come in tired. And I would say, why are you tired? I mean, you just had a weekend. No, mister, I had to work all weekend because my family is one step from homelessness. I take care of my 3 or 4 baby brothers and sisters. And when you have that kind of situation, and then there's the lack of importance from parents on education, you're not going to engage that kid no matter what you do. I had kids that would come in and they would dread the weekend because they know when they go home And even though we were a school that got funding and we got food and we sent home students with packages of food, they knew that they were not going to eat. And when you have a kid that comes in hungry, you're not going to get their brains to turn on no matter what you do, pretty much. I'm not saying it's hopeless. I have that at the high school I'm at. And the reason why I picked the high school is because I wanted to see my 8th graders transition to 9th grade. And it was a really good feeling seeing the kids like that. But at the same time, you see that they are burned out by 14, 15 years old. I don't remember feeling like that as a 14-year-old. And I want to try to be there for them to be the positive part of their day, to say good morning, to say hello. And maybe that gets them to come to school day after day.
Some of the answers we've gotten are deep-seated, systemic, familial, economic, societal. They're not pedagogical. Yet who's getting most of the blame? Oh, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because you are seen as central stakeholders in all of this, a central cause, rightly or wrongly, and yet, from what I hear you saying, these are not necessarily things that you have the tools or the wherewithal to fix.
Hi, Dr. Ray Williams from Delta High School, Clark County School District. I've been getting a lot of students in the last couple of months that have surprised me with the statement that they've been to 3 or 4 different high schools in different school districts in the last year. You know, you leave one English teacher in Des Moines and you go to another English teacher here, you're going to be missing a few things. And I think we get a heck of a lot of students like that, and it's like, geez, let me get out of high school as quickly as possible, because I don't see how I can. I've already acquired some Fs now. My GPA is down the tubes, and I know I'm a smart kid.
See a lot of that transiency? I've read the statistics,
Absolutely.
And this school district has a tremendous number of drop in, drop out, drop in, drop out going on. What's the effect on daily instruction? Trying to do classroom management, trying to keep continuity of instruction.
From Biltmore Continuation School. Most of my students are, as he said, from adult backgrounds and adult understandings. When we can't graduate students out of a behavior school or continuation school, so they do go to adult school, we try to give them as much as we can give them before they walk out the door. The problem is the transiency rate, them coming in from, and not even just moving from state to state, moving from school to school within the district. So when they get kicked out of one school, they leave that school, we get them conditioned and ready to go back to school, they go to a different school. If you've been kicked out of 3 or 4 schools, at some point you are losing your credits. So you're credit deficient. Now we have to send them to adult school. The fact of the matter, they do come in the morning, they have not eaten, they have different home lives, they have to bail their parents out of jail, they're up all night, they have adult lives that you have never seen in your life before. When I was in high school, many years ago, I thought that, you know, I was the cream of the crop. It was great going to high school. Going to high school today is a lot different. It's like going to a job. And they don't understand that. We have to teach them that, hey, this is a job. You have to come in alert, ready to go. Whatever problems you have, leave them outside the gate, bring them inside. Once you come inside, you're ready to learn. But they haven't been taught that. It's a conditioning we have to do from year to year. So it just takes time.
My name is Pablo Navarro from Gibson Middle School. I'm a band director, and one of the saddest things that I see is the kids that leave my school go on to the high school, and they don't have the same opportunities to choose the same electives, music specifically. I'll have a lot of kids come back to me just to visit, and they'll tell me, I'm not in band, I'm in some elective, French or something other than music. And they always express how much they want to be band, how much they like music. I always have a ton of kids after school practicing in the room, having a good time, getting to know each other, and they're really excited about what they're doing. And then they move on to high school, and they're required to take these classes they want to graduate, and they don't enjoy it as much. They just want to get through high school, and that's it. And And music is such an important thing in their lives. It's really important, and they love it when they're so young. And I know that's personally one of the things that I enjoyed when I was in high school. And I know that these kids aren't getting the same. And that's really disheartening because they may never return to it. They may never have that opportunity again.
The Clark County School District is looking at some big changes to the curriculum next year. The Common Core standards will be introduced. Here's the question. Do you feel that the Common Core standards will help reduce the dropout rate? See, this is actually unlike class where you don't want kids looking at their laps. It's actually okay. So you're answering that question on the Common Core.
I don't see at all that Common Core standards will help us address our dropout issue. They are wonderful to have, from my opinion, from my viewpoint, but it's how are teachers allowed to work with those standards that are going to help us engage the students. So technically, from that standpoint, it doesn't matter what standards you have in place, it's what are the teachers able to do with those standards to engage our students, to keep them interested in school.
Will the Common Core help with the transiency problem? If kids are shifting in ninth grade from one school to another, will they have a higher expectation that the same material will be covered when they land in ninth grade in that next school? Is that a reasonable expectation? Okay. Excited about the Common Core, Krista?
I am excited about the Common Core. It ushered in a pretty big transition in English language arts. I'm an English teacher, so that was important to me. Previous to the Common Core, when a sampling was done of different high schools, their English departments noticed that we were teaching classes, different classes at different levels. If a student came in from my school, I think from, say, CHAPARRAL, he or she would be having to enter into a junior level class instead of a sophomore, and they maybe were sophomores. Now we've gotten it to the fact that it's a little bit more streamlined. Common Core as well, I think, gives us an opportunity to go outside of what English language arts used to be, which was one novel or play after another every 4.5 weeks of what we used to call dead white male literature. Present company excluded.
Hey.
It doesn't make it bad.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But what Common Core allows for, and what the change in English language arts, at least here in Clark County, went a little bit more thematic, which means we can pull from different areas, different backgrounds, male and females, and just a greater sense of diversity, contemporary literature, historical literature, our founding fathers. And again, when you can put that together through a theme such as love and war, identity crisis, take a topic like that, expand it out to a theme, suddenly we see students that I think have a little bit of a greater buy-in, at least in English language arts, and that which they read.
Next, we have the story of a high school determined to do what it takes to get more students to graduate. CHAPARRAL High School has been the focus of much media attention recently. It's one of 3 high schools in the Clark County School District in the first year of turnaround.
Framed against the desert mountains of the East Las Vegas Valley, this is CHAPARRAL High School. Due to chronic poor performance, last year CHAPARRAL was deemed a failing school and became one of 5 in Clark County singled out for turnaround.
Turnaround, when we look at it, is a school that needs to be doing better than it's doing, demonstrably better.
Principal David Wilson was brought in to lead the process.
How are you doing on your proficiency prep? Talking to him.
He quickly zeroed in on what he considers the most important of the turnaround goals.
The goal is graduation. Everything that we do is graduation.
He started intensive tutoring, brought in specialized learning programs, and reconfigured class structures. Many of the changes were designed to fill knowledge gaps he calls potholes.
One of the things that kids come to me with are huge potholes in their ability to read, their ability to comprehend, as well as their ability in mathematics to do simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And they're expected as freshmen to be able to do Algebra 1. You can't do that if you don't have the foundation, if you don't have those potholes filled.
To find out whether or not the turnaround is working, Wilson says the proof is in the data.
Data doesn't lie to you. You know, it shows you the true picture of what's happening. The numbers will be good this year, but they'll be significantly better next year.
For the students at CHAPARRAL, when it comes to graduation, the stakes are high.
If they don't have that high school diploma, they really don't have a future. We're basically sentencing the vast majority of them to a lifetime of poverty. I need to graduate kids.
We have the results from another polling question. That question, do you feel that the Common Core standards will help reduce the dropout rate? 33% said yes, 51% no, 16% not sure. Anybody want to expand on their answers, yes or no? Yes.
Hi, my name's John O'Brien. I'm from the SWCTA. My first reaction to that question was absolutely not. And I think about it, it would help some students academically to succeed. But I think that there's a bigger problem, and I don't see it addressed here. I see reading, writing, and math as highlights. The Common Core standards are very important. I'd be more excited to see funding that focused on school climate and creating stronger cultural learning communities, a stronger culture amongst our learning communities. I wish that there was more funding that allowed for individuality at each school through clubs and student organizations. And I think that if a student feels like they're a part of a place by making it their own in some way, then we can reduce dropouts that we can affect directly. A lot of the things we've talked about so far tonight are things we can't control. Poverty and economic duress. That's hard to handle, but some kids that are choosing to drop out, if we can let them feel like they're a part of a place through student school climate, I think we'll.
So it sounds like you're not opposed to the core, it's just not a cure-all.
I don't think that it's linked directly to dropout. I think it would improve academics for us in the county.
Let's get a mic over here.
Susan Kipriotis from Del Sol High School. I also think that it's not a direct link, and part of that is because the standards idea in itself, I believe, sometimes is less important than how we're evaluating whether the students meet that standard and in what way. With the transiency, if we had a student who missed some school for a month, as it is now, that student would come in and not qualify to get credit because of missing too much school. But if in fact that student were given an opportunity immediately to make up that credit, to learn that information, to have some alternative to be successful, and then there was a measurement that showed a way that the student was successful, I think there'd be more motivation for a lot of kids to keep trying. And I personally like to adhere to the whole idea of education as from the old Latin educate, which was to draw out. And I think there are a lot of ways to draw out from kids what they know and what they can learn when we adapt more and make it a student-centered curriculum. So I'm a science teacher, I like standards, I like that maybe somebody in New York is teaching biology, genetics the same time I am, but I agree with the gentleman who spoke before me that I don't think that's a cure-all.
Well, we've gotten a good representation of the majority, slim majority, that said it's not going to be a help. A third of you said it would. Anybody willing to speak up for the effect of the new core?
My name is Leilani Shive, Desert Pines High School. I think it will help with the transiency. I actually was a student who dropped out of high school. I went to school in many different states and transferred, I can't even tell you how many times in one school year. And I think that if we had had Common Core back then so that the standards were the same across the board, it would have helped. So that's one way I think that they'll help. Another way I think they will help is that I think a lot of times our students get behind from the very beginning. And when I say from the beginning, I mean elementary school. And it just gets worse and worse and worse in middle school and then again in high school. And so I think that having the Common Core, making sure that no matter what school they're in, they're getting the same information from the get-go all the way through consistently is going to hold the academics up. I think that that will translate to the proficiency exams, which is a huge reason that students don't graduate, because they can't pass those exams. And if they can't pass the exams, they're like, forget it. Why should I get a certificate of attendance? That's nothing. So I think it will help greatly.
Panel?
I definitely think we're missing the fact that, and you just mentioned it, we see these indicators, we see these red flags as early as elementary school. Just ask any of your students how many of them have a file, and they can tell you how thick it is. And these started back in 5th and 6th grade, maybe when they didn't attend school regularly. These are kids who might have missed one day every couple of weeks or so. By the time that compounds and those behaviors become learned, they're high school students who are missing 3 and 4 days at a time, sometimes whole months of school, like was mentioned. But we can see these indicators, and that's when it requires an entire community within that school to identify the indicators. If absence is one, apathy is another, possible drug use, if that's on file, if that's been found, dabbling in alcohol, etc. If we can put those red flags together and then start some sort of mentorship, we need to start following those kids. And I am an advocate of saying that every kid is important in our schools. But this, what is it, 54%, 56% of our students who are not graduating on time or at all, these are the ones that we could go back and track, and we could continue, of course, to make sure that they go from an elementary school to a middle school, and they are watched, not Big Brother watch, but helped, so that they have you as a teacher. They know they have to come in every Monday and show him, here's the work that I've done. I'm going to get that other work in. Maybe have somebody, an adult, accountable for them. Maybe it's not happening at home. Maybe it is. Maybe the parent at home doesn't understand how to make their son or daughter accountable at school. Maybe they had poor experiences at school. We have to have somebody who understands the system and can help mentor them through, and that has to lead all the way to their senior year in high school.
Gary?
To jump off of what you had said from Desert Pines, we have feeder schools to the high schools that are, say, a Mojave or a Chaparral, some of the schools with some of the lowest graduation rates. They're being fed by mid-schools, which have very low levels of performance, which are being fed by elementary schools with very low levels of performance. A large part of it, in my opinion, is they're all in poverty-stricken zone, all in English as a second language zone. So right from kindergarten, these kids are coming in with major problems. And when will that kid get some help? Well, hopefully they'll have dedicated teachers, but it's hard to teach at a hard luck school. You've got to have a pretty tough skin. A fresh-faced person straight out from Wisconsin could say to themselves, why should I stick it out in this school when I think I could have a lot easier time without all these problems that are not educational problems heaped onto my plate. So you've got to have, I think a lot of these kids have seen nothing but long-term subs and worksheets from age 6 all the way up to high school, up to 12th grade perhaps. So I think there's a big problem there.
Kelly, and then we'll quickly go back to the floor.
Well, to respond to the Common Core question, I was just going to say that I think I agree with him on that. The Common Core standards I don't feel are going to be a fix to the dropout rate. And I am a firm believer that the educator in the classroom is like how compassionate they are, how driven they are, the standards that they set for their children and the expectations they set for their children are going to determine how successful the children are in the future. And then in response to your comment about why I choose to teach in these schools compared to other schools where it might be easier without all the extra problems, I always feel like teaching in these schools is where they need the most help, and they need the people in there who care about them and push them and have high expectations no matter what's going on at home. They need that every day. So I would prefer to teach in a school where they need that.
Good job.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sean Abbott. I'm a counselor at Desert Oasis, and I think what you said is beautiful because I think the kids need a reason to come to school. They need that connection, they need that relationship, and they need continuity. We need continuity in those buildings where the kids are most at risk, where those familiar faces are there every year, year after year, and there isn't the turnover. And I think that needs to be a focus of the leadership in the building to make sure that the good people are there, the people who are connected and have those students' best interests at heart.
Get your mobile devices ready. Hank, you had a comment?
Yeah, I really do think it's all about sustaining a personal relationship with your student. I think you have to engage that student every single day that he enters your classroom. In the adult education program, I mean, it's an open forum, but an open door policy. But every single person that comes through that door, I try to get with one-on-one to make them feel important because they've never, ever felt important in their whole life. Most of these kids, especially the ones that come to adult education. I want them to know that I want them there, and I want them to know that I am going to help them, and I'm going to do my best. And so no, that's what I feel. I feel from the heart that it's all about personal relationship. And
Okay, the next question for those of you with your mobile devices out. Do you feel longer school days or a longer school year will drive students to drop out of school? Most people agree there's no silver bullet to solving the dropout crisis. Now we'll watch a report about a school using a multitude of approaches to keeping kids engaged and graduating.
At Desert Pines High School in Las Vegas, Nevada, the mission is to educate all students to meet the challenges of today's world. But the graduation rate here is lower than the rest of the district.
Last year we were at 53%, which when I talk about state minimums of being acceptable, 50% is acceptable. So is 53 acceptable to me? Absolutely not.
So increasingly, to educate all means focusing on just one at a time.
When you are in a low socioeconomic area, certain things prevail, and sometimes school ends up being what falls down. And you know, it's our job to let these kids know that school has to be number one.
One new program helping make sure every student succeeds is called the Pyramid of Intervention.
Pyramid of Intervention is a radically new idea for the high school level. It's something that has been going on for years in the elementary level.
Students enter the pyramid for a variety of reasons.
The Pyramid of Intervention is nothing more than taking the philosophy of you're not going to be allowed to fail and then plugging it in and saying this is what we have for supports for you to make you want to come to school.
There's a positive and negative component to the pyramid. On the positive side, students are offered mentorship and enrichment. On the negative side, students are offered progressively more personalized attention.
The first time that you decide not to turn your worksheet in, there's going to be a phone call home, and you're going to have to do it. And if you still don't do it, then we're going to bring you in and we're going to have a counselor talk to you and talk to your parent. And then if it's still not done, we're going to require your parent to come down and sit next to you and do that assignment with you. But there's a progression that goes along that states that we're here to support you and we're not going to let you fail.
The pyramid, together with other programs, appears to be working.
Our attendance rate is up 3% this year. So students are coming to school, they're attending more classes.
And school officials remain committed to making sure each and every student has an opportunity to succeed.
Basically, failure is not an option. It goes back to the philosophy that all students will learn.
Just a few moments ago, we asked our teachers, do you feel a longer school day or a longer school year will drive students to drop out of school? 28% said yes, 62% said no, 10% were not sure. So it's one of the most frequently criticized areas of American education. We have a shorter school year in almost every place in the United States than our competitors around the world. You think your kids are ready to go to a longer school year. Can I hear more about that?
I'm from Green Valley High School. My name is Viviana Diarmas, and I wanted to touch on the last point we were talking about and then kind of piggyback onto this current topic. The one before is that Common Core standards, I think that they will be effective because it holds teachers accountable. We've been focusing a lot about, you know, students. Will students appreciate the standards? Will we be able to teach them the importance of the standards. But I think we're forgetting an important aspect of us as teachers, that we need to hold ourselves accountable to these standards. And the growth model will show that, yes, at the beginning when we first get these kids, we're going to do a pretest, see where they are, and have we done our job as teachers to appropriately assess them and teach the standards, and then check them again. Are they learning? And that's our job, and I think that we're missing that as a key component. And I think as far as increasing the longer school days, currently I'm the student council advisor, and I think one of the biggest ways to keep kids in schools is through activities. Student activities, student buy-in, having kids stay after school, come in before school will prevent or hopefully help kids from dropping out. So I wanted to add that. And a good website to go to is Student Alliance, and they have this great 4-minute video saying that X equals student activities, and that if you create that buy-in and you build that community with the students, then they will be more successful.
So not necessarily more class time,
right?
But a longer
more
day
time
where
for
they're engaged in the school one way or the other.
Sure.
Who's next?
My name is Janet Hurd, and I'm with South Continuation High School. I think that at this point, most of our high schools are going into the empowerment program, and it gives them a lot more autonomy where they can do their own budgets, allocate their own funds to where most of the needs are, okay? And for them to have the autonomy to create an academic system where there's most of the need is going to be for children that are not are doing well in classes, they're credit deficient, they're able to build after-school programs, they're able to allocate those funds where the most need is for those particular students. So yes, I do believe that the continuation of the hours, the extension of the hours will be good, and also providing extracurricular and supplemental activity for the kids. It gives them certain buy-in to being positive and feeling like they belong to a community.
You know, there's a charter school in Washington, D.C. that keeps the kids from 8 in the morning to 6 at night, feeds them all 3 meals, and they've driven the dropout rate down close to 0. Yes, sir, can we get this gentleman a microphone?
I teach at Cimarron Memorial High School. I've been teaching for 39 years, and before Cimarron I was at Von Tobel and then in another state. Since the 80s, there's been discussion about length of school day, and it was well established, a lot of research indicating that we were well behind other countries and that it would be beneficial to our students if we had a longer school day. That and all of the societal issues that we've been discussing this evening all come down in a lot of ways to the financial situation and the community. Do we care? A community that cares is going to be willing to do what it takes to make their schools work and become functional. Communities that don't care as much aren't going to put as much effort and time and money into the situation. Now, everybody has suffered in the latest situation, and we know that all of our schools have cut back. So all of the good things that we used to do, the scheduling that we had, the alternatives that we used to have for our students, many of those have gone away. A lot of new things have come along, and I know in my school we offer many opportunities for students who are failing, who are going to drop out. We grab them, pull them back, and provide them with many other opportunities. They may have 4, 5, or 6 options. But these students, the ones that I'm thinking of are seniors, they actually are already at a point where it doesn't matter to them. It hasn't mattered. They don't have the credits to get through now. They honestly believe they will become successful. When I ask my seniors who are failing and have been failing, what are you going to be doing in 6 months? I get answers like, I want to be a lawyer. All right. So we need to honestly have a discussion in terms of what are we really as a community willing to put into it. If we want to have longer school days, that would be beneficial. Many of my students like being at school. It's a safer, more comfortable environment than home. Many of my students would do better. If we had longer school days earlier on, they would be more prepared. Going back to the standards, if we have national standards and we really use them, we don't just say, then my students in high school will come to me more prepared. The amount of education, the amount of information is rapidly increasing. We know we have more information, but we are cutting back because there just isn't enough time.
It's hard to talk about a longer school day or a longer school year when you're cutting $154 million from the budget overall of the school district. It's a school district that's very heavily exposed to the drops in the ability to collect property taxes. When the recession came and people weren't crowding the Strip, sales tax receipts declined, and those feed the schools. It's a tough situation. Yes?
Something that well, from the student polls that I got this week about what they think the problems are, some of them did write that the school day is too long. So that's one thing. But I think what it comes down to is investment. Are they invested in being at school for those longer hours? Is the time purposeful? And what are they getting out of it? At our school, we have implemented a 0 period for kids who need extra help with their reading program, and there is grant money for that. So I think there are opportunities and avenues to get funding for getting the extra help that your kids need if you search for it. And then it's just how you invest your students in that and get them to realize that it's important and helpful and get them excited to be there.
In the 30 years that I've been interviewing teachers, one of the most common observations I get is that when they come back through the door after the long break, you spend the first month getting them back to where they were when they walked out the door at the end of the previous instructional year. Maybe it isn't even more instructional days, but a different way of distributing that time, so you're just not off for 3 months. That may be too long. Yes, sir.
I'm David Winkler. I'm from CHAPARRAL High School. And I'd like to speak to the dynamic in the classroom. I'm currently teaching the grade that I flunked. I remember being one of those students that had very little use for school, and I felt singularly uninspired by teachers. And now, ironically, here I am being one. So I really think that one of the commodities, the chief commodities in the classroom, is passion. I remember a linear dullness entering into the fabric of just about every teacher's dissertation, and it deadened my senses, and that should not be. So therefore, the lady that mentioned activities, keeping activities going, make them forget that the clock is in the classroom. I actually feel like that's my duty, my responsibility, because whether Common Core works or not, I'm not quite sure. Lengthening the school day, possibly. All I know is that the dynamic in this classroom has to be in place or everything else is futile.
Well, you seem to have a very fresh memory of what it was like to be in that situation.
I've been trying to forget.
Well, the kids don't come into school with a black X on their forehead, but can you tell the ones who are in most danger of walking out the door?
We try to solve for X, don't we? And in that case, we're trying to find for them the route that makes the most sense in their lives and relating to them. Thematically, you were talking about Common Core, Crystal. Absolutely, I think that could work. But regardless of whether it's Common Core or long days, there has to be something that makes them want to come into the classroom and something that they can take away that pertains to their lives, something they can plug into. I know that's what I wanted, and I found a dearth of that in the classrooms that I was in back in the day. I'm not proud of the fact that I dropped out. I obviously went back. Here I am. But, it was not a pleasant experience. And I do draw on that memory because I do not want to be hypocritical in the sense that I am one more clog in the system. I want to be that shining light.
Well, what are the warning signs? And pursuant to this point, what can teachers do in response to them? Yeah, can we get the mic over there? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shelburne from Clark High School. And we're very fortunate. We have a very supportive administration staff. And what they did, they're very sensitive to all the different needs and of course, dropout rate, all kinds of issues, all kinds of reasons. But what they did was they incorporated a program, and it's called Adopt a Charger, and they partnered with the teachers. And we, as a community in our school, took on 2 to 3 kids per teacher, per administrator, and just reached out to them. What is their need? How can we help? Can we tutor? Maybe they want to belong to a club, but they're afraid to go. You know, we would encourage them in any way that we can. So,
but the individual student feels known, found out,
absolutely.
searched out.
Exactly.
Ma'am, why don't you hand the mic on right there?
Matson. I'm the literacy specialist at Antonello Elementary, and most of the reading research, or all of the reading research, shows that if children aren't reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade, that without intervention, that they're probably not, there's not a good chance that they're going to be a reader. And if kids aren't reading, then there's a good chance that they're going to struggle and probably going to have a hard time graduating from high school. So that is my passion and mission in life, is helping children learn to read.
So send the fire brigade out earlier. Don't wait till 10th grade.
Don't wait.
I'm glad to see another elementary school teacher. I teach elementary school at Linda Givens Elementary School, and we're about 1,100 students right now at an elementary school, so we're quite large. And it's one of those things where what I hear the common theme is, and I'm really fortunate to be able to do this, is you've got to make kids feel welcome. You've got to make sure they count, they matter. As an elementary school teacher, I'm very fortunate because I have a group of kids that I get to go out and welcome every single day. And in the morning when I see them and they're lined up ready to come into the building, I put my arm around their shoulder and I say, "It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here." It's those little words. And if we could take that and move that to the middle school and move that to the high schools, which it sounds like that's what kids need, that's what human beings need. They need to be in a place where they feel welcome, where they feel as though they have a voice. And what I would love to see happen in the school district is to have elementary school teachers meet with their feeder schools, whether they're middle schools and their high schools, together collectively to see what we can do as a neighborhood, as a community, and get the parents involved, because I think this is a community effort. If we want them to care, we have to show them, and it may have to come from the school and go outward. And that's what I'd really like to see happen.
Hand the mic right behind you.
Hi, I'm Julie Beers. I'm from Sunrise Mountain High School, and we do just about that. We are a community with Bailey Middle School and Hickey Elementary School, and we do meet with the elementary school. We bring the parents in. We try to keep the kids in the school all day long. Teachers have their classrooms open after school. We have after-school programs for the kids. We have tutoring for the kids. And our graduation rates aren't great, but they are rising. And I've been there for 3 years since the school opened, and I hope in another 3 years we will see our rates doubling and tripling, because we're working at it.
It sounds like there are a lot of answers to good questions in this room. Does anybody ask you? Do you feel asked? Do you feel bidden by your bosses, by other people in the system? Are people asking you for your ideas? Are people saying, all right, you're doing what you do, how could we make it better? Because one of the data sets that came through from a teacher poll here in CCSD said that a majority of teachers don't feel like their bosses are asking for their ideas and their innovations and their input.
No, I agree with you. I've never been asked anything of the nature, and from what I see today, there's a lot of ideas that are so helpful, that could be helpful for this district, and maybe that's what they should be doing. I'm from New York. I taught for 30 years in New York, and there is a difference, because I don't think teachers here, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't think the teachers here have enough input into actually what really needs to be done.
I definitely think that that might be a little bit site-based. I think that possibly, I mean, I don't know, raise your hand. How many of you feel as though you have input in your school? And I think that that's site-based. You'll find other people who say maybe they don't. Whether it's within your department or within your administration. I personally know that our administration always polls us We get to give feedback and then give options. We drive the school. We have a subcommittee. We only have one committee. Our principal actually made it so that we literally have one committee left. That's it. No more running around to different meetings. From that, we came up with an 8-period day. We have now an early bird and a late bird to try and meet the needs of kids who want to take electives but feel crunched maybe in their sophomore year by having to take PE and a health class. So. But if not, then that's also a grassroots opportunity for teachers as well to maybe not co-attempt, but maybe to
well, we had a strong majority show of hands, but in the teacher poll from this district, do administrators consider teachers' perspectives? Answering no or seldom, 75%. I guess they didn't feel like coming tonight because all of you who feel like you're being consulted all came here tonight to raise your hands. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you don't feel like you've got a voice in your school or your community, get on the committee that does it. Get off the Sunshine Committee and join a committee that works on curriculum or school climate. That's it. If your voice isn't being heard, it's nobody's fault but your own. So.
Yes. Yes, you were waiting. Go ahead.
I'm Chrissy Bodsford. I'm at Fertitta Middle School, and this is actually my 9th year teaching, but my first year in Clark County. And I wanted to go back to the X on the forehead. And I'm 7th grade reading, and I teach mostly struggling readers. And I'm totally with the idea that if they can't read, that there's not a lot more they can do. But also the whole idea that they're not buying into their education. So there's not obviously an easy answer, but some of the things that we can prevent doing, they just have to be done. When I was in new teacher training at the beginning of the year, there were a group of Teach for America teachers, and quite a few of them were going into, I'm not familiar with the area, but from what I understand, a pretty high poverty area. And there was a teacher, she was going to be in 1st grade, and she was an accountant from Los Angeles who had no training whatsoever in teaching reading to children. To me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, all year long I've been thinking about this group of kids, and that's their shot at 1st grade. Sorry, but how can we make a mistake like that? You know, they're going to end up being talked about later. And they had that start that was possible, and we blew it. So we've got to stop making those kinds of decisions.
It's an excellent point. One word that hasn't been mentioned by anybody on purpose or by accident is parents. And we don't have a lot of time, but could they be helping you a little bit more? I mean, you guys are taking all the blame, so you might as well vent a little bit. Yes, go ahead.
I've been sitting here going, I don't want the cameras on me. I don't want anybody to pay attention to me. But I have this huge issue with what we hear in the media. I don't think we're failing. I think we provide amazing opportunities for these kids. I came to the Clark County School District 23 years ago after teaching 13 years in a rural district in Idaho. And I was floored by the amount of choices the kids had here. They can go online, they can go at night, they've got so many choices, and they can take a class and fail it and take it again for free. They don't even have to pay to take it again. There's no accountability for the students or the parents. And they don't have to answer for what they do in elementary school and junior high. They'll tell you it doesn't count. I happen to teach a class that does count. I teach Spanish 1 for 8th grade students that are going into high school the following year. They're a year ahead on a high school class. And with the new performance framework, that doesn't even count as an accelerated class. And I see a lot of our problems in the system that doesn't hold parents' toes and kids' toes to the fire. They're always putting the teachers on the coals, but we can't do it all ourselves. And I think most of us try our darndest.
Thank you very much. I hope that if you've been watching this program straight through, you found some reassurance that the people who work in the schools in this area care about your kids, dare I say, love your kids and want them to succeed. I'd like to thank all our teacher panel and our audience for being part of this thought-provoking conversation. With the help of educators like the ones we have here and the help of the community, it'll put Southern Nevada one step closer to raising its graduation rate and making a better future for everyone who lives in this state. For more information, resources, or tips, visit vegaspbs.org/American Graduate. And thanks for joining us.
American Graduate Teacher Town Halls are funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and are part of American Graduate Let's Make It Happen, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.